question. Again, our goal today is for you to get to know future Congressman. See, I already got you elected. Future Congressman David Young as he fights for the 3rd Congressional District.
Well, my concern is you just eliminated my questions from the show.
I did. David, it's just you and I then.
Great to be here.
You said
Two's
responsible,
company.
respectful adult questions, and I think I need to leave now.
You do that just fine. All right, Tom, welcome. Thanks for being here. David, thanks for being here. And let's get the whole nominating process question out of the way so people understand that, so we can get to the tough stuff.
I think that's a good idea. David, welcome to the show.
My pleasure. Mac,
we
Tom?
were remiss in not having you during the primary, and you were the quintessential dark horse. You were the 5th seed vote getter in the primary, coming out of seemingly nowhere. I mean, I knew you. For a point of reference, you and I spent a little time at the club having a cigar together, and I grew to know you. And anybody that's a legitimate cigar smoker already has a big check mark on my side of the ledger. But beyond that point, many of the people didn't know you, and the casual observer were shocked that you would come out and win the convention. Can you tell us for just a few minutes about what happened and your perspective on that whole process?
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here, and I am humbled to be the nominee for the 3rd District seat. And I did get 5th in the primary. That was on June 3rd, and if you look at the numbers in that race, you needed to get 35% at least. That's the law in Iowa, and then you are the nominee. And we had 5 people in there, between 24 and 15%. All, it's a single digits between us all. And it was just testament to how good a field it was. And we have a great bench here in Iowa on the GOP side. So I went to convention on June 21st, and we had a strategy that it's kind of ground zero, a level playing field for not just myself, but for everybody else in the race. And we said to ourselves, let's go out and touch all the delegates, 513 of them, either by banging on their door, giving them a call, emailing them, using a surrogate, writing them letters. And, many times I was stuck down Class B service roads and being chased by dogs. And, it's part of the process going out and visiting these delegates. And we asked them to be there if we could be their first choice. Mm-hmm. And didn't always get that. But
you were oftentimes a second choice for many of them.
Wanted to make sure that we were their second choice.
Well, and a bunch of guys that I go out for lunch with on Friday, we've been going out for 20-some years, and they always expect me to know what's going on in politics, and so I try to keep up. And my answer to them was, you were the most popular guy overall. Yes, there were people that came up with a higher percentage, but when you added everybody together, more people wanted you than anybody else. Is that kind of correct?
Well, I think I was the top of people's second choice.
Okay.
And when candidates dropped out, they looked at the rest of the field remaining, and I got a lot of their support. Part of our strategy, too, was just to work hard and be nice, which means you stay positive, focused on the issues, being optimistic, and if other candidates were getting into it a little bit with each other, you stayed out of that, because you have to remember that you didn't want to peeve their delegates, and we had a plan, and it worked out. They don't always work out, but this was the process, and everybody had a chance to do it this way. And I'm just very humbled to be the nominee.
Tom, what was the Ronald Reagan?
Pardon?
What was the Ronald Reagan rule that you never pick on another Republican?
And
that's kind of what you guys did.
The 11th commandment. Yeah.
And Craig Robinson, who's been in that chair a number of times over the last few years, wrote a piece for the Iowa Republican that I happened to bring in and read today. And he was dissecting it to the point that some of your success came from you not doing what Monte Shaw and perhaps a few of the others did, where they started attacking each other. And you stayed above the fray. And so when it came time where Monte could have picked up some support from, Robert Kramer was the first one to drop out. I guess the second one to drop out technically, although I never considered the one fella a real participant. But he had attacked, Monte had attacked Robert Kramer, as had Schultz. And so when it came time for their people to go somewhere else, they weren't going there because they already ticked off about the attacks. And that plays into what you were saying. Would you agree with Craig's assessment then?
by staying positive and staying out of any kind of mudslinging, however severe or weak it was. We didn't want our name involved in that, and we didn't need to. We didn't feel.
Well, it was smart. Let's talk just for a second about the process. Some people are upset about this process. If you could change the process, would you? Or do you think it was the fairest way to select, aside from your success? You obviously are successful. Take that aside. Would you say that the process to select you in this convention was the best way to do it, or is there a better way to do it, a runoff election or something?
Well, obviously, I'm going to be a little biased here and say it was the best process for me.
Of course.
At the time. But you may see the legislature work on this. Brad Zahn has talked about, and other folks too in the legislature have talked about wanting to change it to a runoff system. There's pros and cons each way, and I would be fine with whatever it is. I would just work within whatever the law is, which would be what everyone else would have to do. So
it looked like the media tried to stir up trouble where there was really none this last week by acting like Zahn was talking actively about a third-party candidacy. He put that to bed this last week. And I don't think, I've known Brad for years, I don't think he ever really seriously considered that. Do you want to make any comments on that dust-up that happened? And again, I think it was a media conspired controversy that made more of it than there really was. What do you think?
I agree with you there. And Brad's a good friend, and we got to become very close during the campaign. Many times we would just kind of stand over with each other on the side and kind of shared the same perspective as to why we're doing this and what was going on. And there were times between some forums and debates where we would sneak out into the back hall and say a little prayer. And he's a good friend, and we've been in touch since then. And all the candidates have put out statements saying we're unified behind David. And if it was anybody else who's the nominee, I'd be unified behind them.
Well, and I think some of the people felt that Monty Shaw, they weren't supporting him for a reason other than they thought he might be the most appealing in a general election. I met with Monty, I've known virtually everybody in that race over a period of time. I felt that you might offer the best in a general election. Your background, your experience, being the with the Grassley campaign, being his chief of staff for some years, understanding Washington, but also your personality. There was a problem with some of the others, and I think Brad and Matt could have been more easily demonized by a Democrat machine that was looking for something to throw brickbats at. I think certainly Robert Kramer would have fit that bill, too. And Robert, nice fellow, but was a little stiff up on the stump. I think you come across very easily. You have a personality that's hard to grab a hold of negatives. I think you have a good way with people. And I felt that you might have the best shot in a general election where perhaps some of the others carried too much baggage.
Well, I would say that hopefully that's what the delegates saw as well.
Was there a question there?
No, it was more of a statement, Mac.
Okay, I think that was a Tom Coates statement.
It was a statement, and it's a bit of an endorsement because I've had people come to me in the last few weeks, and like you, Mac, I have them come to me and want to talk politics.
Yeah.
And I've said, give David a chance. You're not happy with the way the convention went for whatever reason, but give him a chance. And certainly when you compare him, and for a while, Mac, thankfully, Stacey Apple, his opponent, was my state senator.
Oh, yeah,
down
from Warren
in
County.
Warren County. And believe me, she was far, far too left to suit anybody that I knew of down there in Warren County. So even a very flawed Kent Sorensen was able to take her out. We need to focus on, even if you don't think that this man sitting here is the ideal candidate, although I find very little to fault him with, consider the alternative and consider that if you're going to get stubborn and say, I don't like this and I'm not going to vote, you've also got some other big races here. So,
all right, we've got Emily and Nick waiting online. We're going to take our first break. And then when we come back, we'll go to Emily and Nick. And if you've got questions for for David Young, the candidate, David Young.
Just call me Dave or David. I've been called worse, Mac.
I'm sure you have, but not by anybody who likes you. 1-855-244-0077. Let me say that slowly. 1-855-244-0077. 0077, and this will also be posted on our Facebook page. And if you guys want to post it on yours, you can in whole. So you can forward it, you can share it, you can pass it on to your friends, so we can get everybody knowing what David Young is all about, so we can win this congressional race. I'm J. Michael McCoy. If I haven't told you lately, thanks for listening. Love this job. Couldn't do it without you. Right here on KTIA, Iowa.
Get away from us, you neat old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit, you're our hero!
Yes, now your favorite programs on Webcast One Live can all be watched and listened to on any Android or Apple device, your phone, tablet, or iPad. Yes, your favorite shows on Webcast One Live are available live or on podcast wherever you go. Let me introduce to you some of our great shows.
Shalom! Every week on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman, we'll talk about issues in the Middle East, issues related to the Jewish tradition and religious traditions in general, and keep you up to date on exactly what's going on around the world. You may know some of the story, but you haven't heard all of the story until you've heard it on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman and our special guests we have on every week.
Hey, this is Doc with Doc and Lefty. I want to tell you about our brand new time slot. It's from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. It's on the same night, Tuesdays. We now follow Ed Fallon and the Fallon Forum on webcast1live.com. I want to tell you a little bit about our show. Our show is focused on local, state, and national, and sometimes international politics. We like to keep people updated and informed. We also have very interesting guests. So please join us every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on webcast1live.com.
So when you want to watch your favorite Webcast One program, remember, there's an app for that. You know, there's an app for that.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, what's wrong? Logan wants Let's Rock Elmo for his birthday, but since Steve lost his job, I don't think we can afford it. What did you do for money last year when you and John were struggling to make ends meet?
My secret? I went to Me and Mommy to Be. We sold all of Megan and Ryan's clothes and toys there. They give back the highest percentage on their items in the area, and it was so easy.
Megan's clothes? She's 15.
Yes, they can sign newborn through trendy teens. We're not struggling now, but I'm gonna keep saving and making money at Me and Mommy to Be.
We're back 21 minutes after the hour on this 15th day of July in the Lord's year 2014. I'm J. Michael McCoy along with Tom Coates today, our special guest, David Young, who has won the right to represent the Republicans in the 3rd Congressional District here in the state of Iowa, taking the very good Congressman Tom Latham's place as he steps down from Washington after many years of service to return to his family and take care of things in Iowa. We've got some phone lines that are open at 1-855-244-0077. Let's take Emily. Emily, you're live on Max World. What is your question for David Young?
Hi, Mr. Young. I consider myself an independent, but I've been following this race, and I really like you over the Democrat, Stacey Apple. I'm just curious. What are some solutions that you have if you get to D.C., specifically for health care? I know a lot of Americans are really upset with the ACA, and I'm just curious what you think you could do to improve that.
Thank you, Emily.
Well, starting off with the Affordable Care Act, the Obamacare, whatever you want to call it, two things. I think it was a bad process. Something as serious as this is going to have to come down in an open kind of hearing setting in a bipartisan way. I mean, we're talking about 1/6 of our nation's economy. And I thought it was bad law. The government trying to take over our healthcare system and restricting people's freedoms, really harming relationships between doctors and patients, employers and employees. I prefer the free market solutions, competition, dropping the barriers around state lines, which prohibit folks from shopping for health care across state lines and having a true open market, much like you do with homeowners insurance or car insurance. I think you have to really look at tort reform, which is running up the price of health care. And a big one is price transparency for me. Many times we go to the doctor's office or provider or hospital, and we don't quite know what we're going to get in terms of a bill until the process and procedures are over. And then we have a sticker shock in a sense. I think that we need to make those prices transparent. For one reason, many times those are paid for by taxpayer dollars, whether it be Medicare dollars. So we're paying for it. And by knowing what it costs before we go in, you can have some competition there and deliver better health care.
David Young is our guest. He's running for your vote, for your confidence in the 3rd Congressional District up against Stacey Apple this fall. Let's go to the phone lines where Nick is standing by. Nick, what's your question for David Young?
Hi, Mr. Young. Well, I was just wondering, I keep looking at the newspaper and I'm watching the news and, I try to stay pretty up to date and I keep seeing all this reports about the economy and all these things, and I'm wondering, and because one of my biggest concerns is the federal budget, what do you plan to do specifically to fix the budget?
Thank you, Nick.
Well, we're talking about almost an $18.8 trillion in debt. And, it has doubled since President Obama came into office. But you can't just place all the blame on him or on Democrats. I mean, we have gotten into this hole. Both sides have lost their way. As a Republican, I want fiscal discipline. I want balanced budgets. I want to bring the debt down, and you really have to attack it from many different ways. One is the way we budget. We do this baseline budgeting where Congress has agencies and departments come up, they nod at each other, Congress gives these agencies the same amount of funds as they got the year before, if not a little more, and there's no transparency, there's no accountability with what they use with those dollars. And then we find out, almost too late what they're doing with some of these things, whether it be flying drones through the EPA over our farms, or selling guns to drug lords in Mexico that come back and kill some of our own. A lot of states are doing what they call zero-based budgeting, municipalities as well. What that is you assume these agencies and departments start at zero, and you essentially make them come up to Congress and beg for every dollar they want. Much like a kid coming to ask a parent for a few bucks for something. The parent's going to say, what do you need it for?
Yeah.
And there's some accountability and transparency there. We need to audit the federal government. Congress has some tools. They need to use them. It's called oversight and investigations. I learned how to do that from Senator Grassley.
Yeah, you spent how many years with Senator Grassley?
I was with the senator working for Iowa for 7 years as his chief of staff.
And for me, that says so much about your resume. I happen to be a big Grassley fan, always have been. And the reason I am is because every once in a while, my wife and I run into an issue. We don't use my name as a radio guy. In fact, she makes the contact. Every single time he's gotten back to us. Not always with the answer we wanted, but every single time we heard back from his office. And it was never a form letter that we got. It was a phone call from somebody.
A member of Congress, they vote. They can do oversight. And it's essential, too, that they have constituent service. And one of the things that Senator Grassley taught me and just implored within me is remember who your boss is. It's not party leadership at the state or the federal level or in the Oval Office. It's the folks in Fremont County. It's the folks in Pottawatomie County, Polk County, Dallas County. They're your bosses. They hire you and they fire you. And sometimes members of Congress, you see, they forget that. Look what just happened to Eric Cantor, who's in House leadership.
Yep.
Gone. And I'll tell you another story. Constituent service is so important to Senator Grassley. It's going to be very important to me. He told me a story when I came on as his chief of staff. And he said, David, when I became a congressman, a wise old sage of a congressman said to me, you do whatever your constituents need. If a little old lady comes in and says, I need my toenails clipped, you clip her toenails. And I went out 2 weeks later and bought 30 toenail clippers.
There you go.
Gave them to the senator and said, let's remind the staff of this because we need to take care of Iowans, and he handed those out.
David Young is our guest today. He's running for your vote, your confidence, your faith. He's asking for it. He doesn't blindly think he should receive it simply because he won the nomination. He's asking for you to trust him. And the best way to trust is to trust and verify. Verify your thoughts with David Young through the phone lines. You can give us a call, 244-0077, or you can Facebook me. Frank sent us a question, David. In a recent commercial, Stacey Apple did not mention Obama or his policies, and in fact, she was not even identified as a Democrat. Can you exploit this weakness? And we as Republicans need to set aside our differences and pull for the winner of the primary, even if it's not your guy.
Well, no one deserves this to be elected, and I don't need this job, and nobody should need this job out of fulfilling a resume or a personal goal. But I do want to serve the people of Iowa, and I can bring a perspective here of having seen Washington up close, and it is ugly. But I've always kept an outside Iowa perspective, and I know what can be done and how to get it done. And I'm ready to hit the ground running. I'm not going to be one who's going to have to learn the ropes for a year and a half, and then say, it's all of a sudden it's.
Well, you're not going to be a junior congressman.
Thank you, but
right? I mean, not really.
I'll have a head start.
Yeah, no apprenticeship for you.
And I'm eager to get to work because we have some major issues, and I don't care who's in power, Republicans or Democrats. It's the taxpayer of Iowa that I work for, and adhering to the Constitution.
Let's go to Dennis on the phones at 244-0077. Dennis, what's your question for David Young?
Hi, David. I just appreciate your honesty and humility, and I had just had a question. My concern is about the morals of this country. I feel like the judges are running, I don't know what the right word is, but they are ones that are making the law, and I'm really concerned about family, and now marriage has been redefined, and it just seems to be falling apart. I think something that's marriage was designed by God for over 2,000 years, and just for some judges to change that is absurd. And I was wondering, I know you're just one person, but if you have any ideas on how to work in this area, and I also am very strong pro-life, and I just wondered what your thoughts were on these two areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
I have a biblical worldview when it comes to marriage. It's between a man and woman. I can't change that. God defined that. And when it comes to life, I'm pro-life, from conception to natural death. What can be done in Washington? In the next 2 years, I think it's going to be a lot of hearts and minds is what it's going to be, because, we have an administration who is totally opposite from where you and I are on these issues.
No kidding.
But where there's some avenues that, I'll be there, and I'll be supporting traditional marriage and life. And you see also that what the courts have done. The Supreme Court has kicked this essentially back to the states, and so it is legal in Iowa. And I would implore with our state legislatures or to deal with this issue. And when it comes to judges as well, overall, the Senate is in charge of confirming judges. But I would ask that when these nominations go forward and these names are sent from the White House down to the Senate Judiciary Committee, contact me, and I'll let my counterparts in the Senate, Senator Grassley and hopefully Senator Ernst, that know what my constituents are saying.
David Young is our guest today. He's running for your vote in the 3rd Congressional District. Tom, what do you have for David?
A couple of things. Let's go back to the financial issues. Well, I want to talk just a minute about those. I agree with you. The baseline budgeting has been a real bane, because they say, well, we cut this budget. They didn't really. All they did was cut the level of increase from the previous one. But a bigger deal, I think really a bigger deal even than that, is the growth of entitlements, what we consider entitlements: Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, now Obamacare. Those types of things, if allowed unchecked, and those are the sticky issues, because as you bring up entitlement spending, you're upsetting somebody because, and you're potentially losing their vote. How are you going to address the entitlement spending monster that is coming upon us, David?
Well, there are two issues that I think about. One is the mandatory spending when it comes to Social Security and Medicare. They make up a large part of our budget. And we see right now that they're both going bankrupt in 15 years. Those promises, they need to be kept to our seniors and those who are disabled. We have to do what Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill did in 1984. They both came to the table with their party leadership and said, we have a severe problem here, And it's not a political problem. It's an American problem. It's a promise that we have to keep. And they put everything on the table. Now, they can take some things off the table as they go about the debate, but you have to start there with honest brokers and not just demagogue this issue. People are tired of the rants back and forth saying you want to raid Social Security, you want to lift the retirement age, you want a means test, you want to privatize it. Let's have an honest debate. There's too much at stake here. I want to be a part of that debate. I'm not a bomb thrower. I got a stick here, and I'd like to whack the government here and there. But I want to be at the table, and you have to deal with it.
What you're saying, I'm hearing, is that you would continue the promises to the older generation, but some adjustments have to be made so that the programs stay viable going forward. As you've mentioned, we've got almost $19 trillion in an official deficit. But when you calculate the unfunded liabilities of the Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, now Obamacare, we're closer to 80 to 100 trillion you go down the road if things don't change. And these are things that will bankrupt the country, and we can't hardly print enough paper to pay for it, can we?
Well, the other way to help this is to get this economy rolling so there are more workers and more taxpayers so people can those payroll taxes put into Social Security.
Yeah, and the percentage of working Americans that are actually working in this workforce is as low as it's been in over 30 years.
We need bold leadership from the White House, and it has to start there in terms of getting this economy rolling. We're doing pretty good in Iowa. Now, you can thank our state, our leadership here in the state with our governor. You can thank the great seasons of agriculture, which we are an ag economy. But in Iowa, you know as well as I know, look in the mirror. We're wired to work. It's just in our DNA, and we just get it done. But there are so many folks out there who've just dropped out of the workforce and given up. And some of those folks are our neighbors and our friends and our family members, and we owe it to them to have some leadership on this to get them a job.
David Young wants your vote. He wants the job. Questions for him, 244-0077. When we come back, who is David Young? Where does he come from? Where's his roots? What's his faith? What's his core values? Some of the things you won't hear on a typical talk show. With Tom Coates next, here live on Max World on 99.3. This is KTIA, Iowa.
Got more calls than usual, Max.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I am administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seemed like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there, they're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
Minutes before the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News updating us on what a disturbing events in Israel. Is it going to be just another halt, start? This guy said this guy said this. That's what we hope it is, but it doesn't look that way. Everybody has kind of thumbed their nose in any type of peace agreement. ISIS is an unknown force. I don't know if you've heard this, Tom, but there is already propaganda out there saying that ISIS is made up of American soldiers.
Well, I think the leader of ISIS we had in Guantanamo at one point.
Correct.
We released him, and of course now Obama is. I think what he's going to do, he's going to release the worst of the worst, and then he's going to finally say, all we got left here is privates and corporals. Might as well turn the rest of them out. Because he's turning out the leadership that turns around and bites us in the rear. And and now, did you see the report today? The deserter, what's his name, is back at work in the military.
And he's going to get $350,000 of back pay.
If they can't convict him of desertion.
I don't think they'll try him.
And this administration is not predisposed to want to get justice. They're just like some other scandals, David, that we've had. They're more worried about the politics of. Always the politics is first with this bunch. It's how can it benefit us, or what does it extend our agenda to do politically? Let's go back for a second, David, to the question on the morals issue, because we've had candidates in here for different offices over the years, and we really, I want to dig into just a little bit more. The issue of life and the issue of, we talk about it as a gay marriage issue, and but there have been some moves by this administration, particularly in this, as regards to the military. They've gone from the Clinton era, don't ask, don't tell, to a very pro-gay agenda in our military. Is that something that can be rolled back, or are we going to have this in-your-face gay agenda in our military till the day we die?
You know, culturally, the world has changed even from when I was a child. And so, I believe that, I'm not somebody who wants to bash anybody. I want to treat people with love. And so although I don't agree with somebody's lifestyle, I'm not one to beat them up over it. And like I tell people, my faith means a lot to me, but I'm not running for U.S. minister. I mean, the best thing that I can do is invite another member of Congress to lunch or something and talk about these issues and learn something from them, but overall try to win hearts and minds with folks.
Our danger is that we go to the point that Canada is, and they've even had ministers arrested for hate talk from the pulpit because they've been reading out of Scripture. Now, I think some of us are concerned that is the agenda. It's no longer a tolerance agenda by the other side. It's they want the thought police out there. We've seen it exhibited time and time again. Comments by people in high-profile position have been taken on, and they've been pilloried, and even in the case of some of them, forced to divest themselves of things like trademarks and pro ball teams and other things just for a comment that they may have made. How far can the American people look forward to the thought police of the politically correct in this country getting into your own lives?
You know, our religious liberties. I mean, that's why we left the Crown of England, right, to come out here.
Yeah.
And
Tom remembers that. You and I are too young, but
he was smoking a cigar with the king.
Yes.
But it's a serious issue, and we look at our houses of worship today, and we want to make sure that we are protected by that First Amendment and not intimidated by the government or any groups, left or right, to proselytize in a certain way from the pulpit. But we talked earlier, a few months ago about what was happening in Canada, and it's very scary.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. I don't want to go to a church that tells me what the politics are from the pulpit. There's enough places in today's social media and everything else I can get those things.
I want to hear the gospel.
That's me. That's right. I do too. David Young is our guest. So tell me, where's home? Where were you born and raised?
Born and raised in Van Meter.
In
Dallas County. When I was born in 1968, there was about 374 people.
In Dallas County or in
Van Meter.
Okay, and now there's
just about 1,000.
Wow, tripled.
Born and raised there. I'm a sixth-generation Iowan, and my family came out here in 1881 from Germany, and they settled in Pocahontas County. And they worked on a railroad. They built a church. They farmed, and they moved their way down to Van Meter. My grandparents had Young's Cafe. And my mom and dad met in junior high and eventually got married. My brother and sister and I just had a great small town life, playing in the Raccoon River. I delivered the paper, Boy Scouts, Little League, 4-H, that kind of thing. And then when I was 15, the family moved into Johnston. And across the street from me and 2 doors down was a tall, blonde, lanky kid named Robert Kramer, believe it or not.
There you go.
Who I was in this race with. And yet, from then, we had some great moments on the campaign trail reminiscing. But I went to Drake University, got an English degree, worked at Norwest Financial for some time after that, a few years, and then, saw my check, wondered who FICA was, wondered what was going on with my tax dollars, that kind of thing. And I just paid more attention to campaigns and policy and politics and what was happening. When you get out of college and you get a job, you pay more attention to those things, and so...
And married, kids, what's your life like at home?
I'm not married, but I am the world's greatest uncle. I have an older sister and a younger brother, 7 nieces and nephews. Sometimes I think the good Lord sent me home here for good to find a good woman. So
there you go.
There's nothing like a believing Iowa gal.
Yeah, you better be doing your fishing here than Washington, D.C., I would think, if you're going to increase your odds of finding that.
Well, the Potomac River reeks and it's rotten, and the Raccoon River here in Iowa is just fine with me.
When you were growing up in Van Meter, so let's say 1980, so you're 12 and 13 years old, who is your hero?
Oh, my hero were probably Major League Baseball players.
What did they teach you?
Persistence and hard work.
Okay.
Because some of my favorite players were nobodies in their first few years, and then they became all-stars and that kind of thing. But, my grandfather was, both of them, my mom and dad.
If I want you to rate the following 3 things in the order of importance to you: making money, making a name for yourself, or serving other people.
I have a servant's heart, serving other people.
Okay.
I've been offered jobs paying a good amount of money, and it just never appealed to me. I mean... I didn't see the purpose, because what fulfills me is giving to others and working for others and serving others.
If you could spend an hour with anyone, living or dead, who would it be?
Abe Lincoln.
Wow.
Margaret Thatcher.
Okay.
I'd like to have some time back with my grandparents.
Sure.
Who I loved very much growing up.
I collect historical documents, and I've always wanted an Abe Lincoln, but they're just... just his signature is $35,000. Forget the document that it's on.
Save your money.
If you remember the television show Bewitched?
Vaguely.
Okay. Well,
I was more of a Gilligan's Island.
Okay.
Hogan's Hero.
All right. Well, let's just say for a moment that Tom Coates is a wizard, and he snaps his fingers, and everybody else in this room freezes, and he says to you, David, if you could change yourself in any way, how would it be? You could be taller, shorter, older, fatter, skinnier, or some event in your life would be wiped off the map or added. What would that be?
I maybe have a little more courage.
Really?
Yeah.
I think a guy like you has all the courage in the world. I mean, you're out there in front of all the stone throwers saying, throw one at me if you can. You without sin, throw me a stone, and yet they throw them all day long because they think their sins aren't as bad as somebody else's.
Well, a year ago when I got into this race, there are a lot of stones being thrown. And, I prayed over and over again, the Lord be my refuge and strength. And he's answered that. God's not going to give you anything that you can't go through. And as long as you rely on him for your strength.
Absolutely.
But there, I would ask for prayer and wisdom and courage because, during this election and this campaign, and should I be honored to serve the people of the 3rd District, give me courage to stand up, for what is right every day.
Because you're following a great guy.
Well, he's been a great role model.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, Latham is one of the few, and you work for a guy, too. Those two guys, Latham and Grassley, have cut a path with Iowa standing strong for, 40 years now in Washington? Forget about Harkin, but the other two, you guys have, they've done a great job leading Iowa in Washington.
Let me ask David a quick question. It comes out now that Tom Latham actually wanted to step down earlier. He was persuaded that when the two congressional seats came together, that they needed him to beat Boswell.
Hold that question.
Okay, all right.
And when we come back, you can be first in line to ask him that. David Young is our guest. He's running for your vote, your confidence in the 3rd District congressional vote. More when we come back live here on KTIA, Iowa.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart, and it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
10 minutes before the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News, and then Michael Mudloff from True Blue from Westkirk Presbyterian Church. David Young is our guest. Your voice is what I want to hear. 244-0077. Just a few minutes left. Now, you had a good question, Tom, going into the part about Latham.
Yeah, the Latham thing, we find out now that he actually wanted to step down 2 years earlier, and he was persuaded to stay in there to beat Boswell. They needed the incumbent with Tom Latham to beat Boswell, they felt, and that was good strategy. Some of us assumed when the surprise of Harkin stepping down, opening up the U.S. Senate seat, he would be a natural to step in, and the polls showed that he would have had a hefty lead early on. Didn't, and wanted to get out. And so those two vacancies have created a unique situation. We not only have an open House seat, we have an open U.S. Senate seat, which comes along once in a lifetime here in the state of Iowa. You at one point looked to think about running for the U.S. Senate seat. Changed your mind, went to the House seat. Stacey Apple, you're not going to mention her name, but I will. Your opponent was looked at as cannon fodder. They were letting her run against Latham because she had no chance to beat him and nobody else wanted to expend the resources and the time. And so when that seat came open and all of a sudden it's viable, more viable candidates were willing to step up, but she was able to beat him back. So she remains your opponent in November. Your situation, how do you see it? You're stepping aside from the Senate seat. Your run, was it just all God inspired? How do you see this situation?
Well, when Senator Tom Harkin announced that he was not going to run again, myself, like a lot of other folks in Iowa, thought that this is a great opportunity for us as Republicans to capture this seat. And right away, I thought of people like, Tom Latham, Lieutenant Governor Reynolds, Bill Northey, Matt Schultz, Steve King, whoever, to take this seat. but all of them said no, 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 no. And I started getting a desire in my heart to want to serve, and I stepped into that Senate race. It got crowded. 6 people were in it eventually, and I saw what was happening. It was difficult to raise money in that Senate seat, and you see some alliances getting behind Joni, and you could tell that this wasn't going to go good for me. And then Congressman Latham said he was going to step out and not run again. I wish he was still running, because I think he's a great public servant and a great leader for Iowa. And that door opened, and I guess he talked about courage and walking through that. The good Lord gave me some courage to do that, and I thought it was more my speed of a race. It's my 3rd district where I was born and raised. My family is, and where I was educated, and this is where I am. And
we've had Congressman Latham in that seat.
Yeah.
In fact, I had a chance to sit in his office in Washington once and visit with him. We like Latham, but we'll be very proud to call you Congressman one of these days. And I'm glad that you made that quick switch.
It was still competitive, because let me tell you, with Robert Kramer and Matt Schultz and Brad Zahn and Monty Shaw and Joe Grandinet, they are good people, and they're doing it for the right reasons.
Right.
And it also shows the strength of the Republican bench, because as you've seen, Congressman Braley and my opponent, they didn't have primaries.
No.
And they weren't tested.
Yeah, right.
And we have a bench, and that's nice to rely on.
Although the media is doing a pretty decent job of taking apart Braley. What's the latest thing with the chickens?
I sent you over that thing on the chicken.
Yeah.
I mean, that's quite a story,
Well,
Mac.
I don't understand it. Explain it to me.
Well, the way I read it, it's in the anybody wants to read, it's in the Iowa Republican, and it was written by a fellow named Jeff Patch, and it's very well researched, and it's not old news. This is something that just happened in the last couple of months. He's got a lake home up there. I guess I don't remember where
It's
the
in
lake
the Cedar
home.
Rapids area.
Brooklyn, Iowa.
Okay.
And a chicken. A woman is raising 4 chickens, laying eggs and giving eggs to her neighbors, and she uses this in therapy with these handicapped children. And so they're therapy chickens, and one of them crosses the border onto Braley's property. And
Braley gives them a home, sends them taxpayer dollars, and sets them up to be an American.
No, that's not how it worked. Eventually, Bruce Braley called the attorney for the home association that he's a member of and threatened a lawsuit against the homeowners association. It cost him almost $1,700. The woman nicely, and who is a registered Democrat, this is not a Republican, trying to say, she's a registered Democrat, brings a dozen eggs over and offers them up, and Mrs. Braley says, no, we're actually going to sue you and the homeowners association. We don't want your eggs.
Yeah, I think I do want a farmer running the Judiciary
this is
Committee.
quite a story. Very well researched. Congratulations to Jeff Patch and the Iowa Republican. It needs to be out there.
Yeah.
And Braley is just shooting himself in the foot about once a week. The 4th of July parade where he claimed to be a farmer. Now this chicken thing. I know it's not your race, it's Joni's, but the door is wide open with this guy. And somebody suggested instead of eggs, maybe they should have offered him towel service.
We're about out of time. One of the things I want to ask you is I've been a fan of Chuck Grassley. I got to sit with his wife one time when Chuck was speaking, and somehow we just struck up this neat conversation that didn't have anything to do with politics. It had to do with grandchildren, and her eyes just sparkled when she talked about her grandkids. What's the thing you've learned most from Senator Chuck Grassley? Because nobody's been closer to him except... What, his wife? Maybe his kids?
Well, Barbara, you're talking about his wife, is a wonderful person.
Yeah.
And she's got a great heart, and she is such an asset to him. She's a secret weapon. Senator Grassley taught me how to listen. I'm talking to you right now. I've taken some of your phone calls and questions. When I go out in the district, I'm asking questions. I want to hear what people have to say, their concerns, their solutions, their angst, their joys, their dreams, their sorrows. I can no better represent the 3rd Congressional District if I don't know what Iowans here are thinking. Number 2, remembering who your boss is.
Yeah.
Not leadership. We talked about this earlier,
Right.
but the people in 3rd District have the ability to hire and fire. I report to them. And 3rd, as a person of faith, many times I had looked around for Senator Grassley in the office and he wasn't there, but I'd find him over in the Capitol in his office there, and he'd be reading his Bible.
Yeah.
And I'd say he's doing what he needs to do. I'm not going to bother him. So as a person of faith, you don't have to sell your soul to get something done in Washington.
You know, I don't think there's any doubt that you're going to get the Republican vote, but after meeting you and talking with you the past hour, I think you're going to get the independent vote, and I think there's some good Democrats out there that are going to realize that your opponent, my words, not yours, she's not going to do a good job. She has no track record of doing a good job.
Well, you're kind, and I'm asking for the vote of everyone, and I will remember that should I be elected, I represent this whole district.
Yeah, David Young is asking for your vote, asking for your confidence, asking for your trust, but not without verification. You got questions for him? Meet him at a campaign stop. Give his campaign office a call. Get to know this man, because we want you to vote for him, but we want you to vote for him because he's your guy, not because he's our guy. David, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Tom, thanks for being here on this Tuesday. Maddie, great job producing. A little tough today at the start. Thank you very much. And Right Places will be here tomorrow and Thursday with great gospel music. And I will return this Friday. I've got a great guest on View from the Pew. Nate Noble will be in the house, and we're going to learn some fun things about him. So until we meet again, until we get an opportunity to talk again, do me a favor. Think of somebody you don't like. Maybe the lady next door who's got the chickens. Maybe the guy with the barking dog. Maybe somebody who's just continually irritating you for whatever reason. Tonight, when you drop to your knees and you say your prayers, forgive that person, because you shall be forgiven as you forgive others. Just pray. See you tomorrow.